Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us today. I super duper appreciate it. We're going over UFC 303, Alex Pereira versus Jiri Prochazka from our picks, predictions, breaking down the fights from a stylistic standpoint, and of course, from a betting perspective as well. I also wanted to quickly mention, thank you so much for almost at 1K subs. I super duper appreciate the support. And I'm going to mention one more thing. There's a lot of jump cuts in this video because I was having problems with my audio, my camera going out. Just really brutal luck. So if I'm wearing a different outfit in some of the videos, or there's a few jump cuts, just keep that in mind. I don't know how much of a difference it makes. You guys probably don't even care. But anyways, without further ado, of course, let's get into it. We are a betting channel here. Make sure you guys have a bankroll, money set aside for betting purposes. Recommended staking strategies. I've tried all types of different betting strategies and staking plans over the years, but this is what I find works best. Keep in mind, we are trying to grind and make money from the UFC betting markets long term. We're going to try and treat this like an investment vehicle and just slowly accumulate profits over time. Betting process is an ongoing battle, right? So some fights are very much subject to change. Throughout the week, I might get a stronger, more confident read on a particular matchup as the week progresses. I'm not one of these guys who that's my tape, and then on Monday, I'm just going to stick with that pick throughout it. I'm always thinking about the fights, always running scenarios in my head. And I can't turn it off. It's basically a 24/7 thing for me. So yeah, enjoy the video, guys, and good luck with your bets, predictions. And let me know what you guys are picking. Do you guys disagree with me? So the first fight of the night, we got Oliveira versus Ricky Simón. Now, when we go to the Oliveira's side, his style, he's a switch stance style of fighter. He likes to have his hands down low. He throws both with his hands and kicks. Mainly throws singular shots compared to combinations. One thing I've noticed that he's extremely arrogant. He thinks he's amazing, and he does a bit of showboating in the fight. Of course, you need to have a bit of self-confidence when you're fighting, but I think with his case is a little bit too extreme. Overall, from what I've seen so far, not that impressed, to be honest. I think his potential, his upside and the ceiling inside the UFC is just below the mid-levels of the bantamweights. Of course, the bantamweight division is historically one of the most difficult divisions to do well in. For instance, in his fight against Sapaj was having grappling success. He looked kind of weak off his back. Sapaj was able to have him in a mount multiple times. Was taking his back, and he looked heavy on top against Oliveira. Now, Simón, on the other hand, probably almost a UFC veteran at this point. He's a solid, good level bantamweight, in my opinion. Mainly got a grinding wrestling style. He's solid when it comes to his wrestling, and he's been improving his boxing over the years. He has a nice tight guard when it comes to boxing, looks to landing, compact shots, and he's definitely been developing that aspect of his game. But one thing I am worried about with Simón is his durability. Historically, he's a guy who's not had the greatest durability. Now, paths to victory, how these two match up. Oliveira needs to keep the fight standing, right? He needs to defend the wrestling attempt from Simón, then look to outstrike Simón, or if he does get taken down, work his way back up to the feet and look to keep his fight standing. Simón, on the other hand, he should look to keep this fight competitive on the feet, then look to grind up his wrestling, mix things up with his wrestling, grind on Oliveira, secure takedowns. How they match up, and from a prediction standpoint, gonna have to pick Simón here because I do think it's a big step down in competition for him. I don't think him winning the striking exchanges is out of the equation, and I definitely think he can mix things up with his wrestling too. So because of all of that, it's going to be a medium level confidence pick on Ricky Simón. From a betting perspective, I'm seeing odds around 1.45. I agree with Simón being a decent sized favourite. I think that's fair. I'm a little bit unsure, a little bit nervous with him. I have a feeling he might be on decline, but yeah, I'm going to have to pick Simón here. From a live betting perspective, if Simon's winning the early exchanges, then the line's going to be cooked, right? But you probably have to look to possibly target the Oliveira side unless it's a close competitive fight. And the scenario where you might want to live bet and jump in on Oliveira is if Simon's struggling on the feet, he's shot a couple of takedowns, Oliveira's just working his way back up to the feet, and he's doing well in these grappling exchanges, then you could possibly look to live bet Oliveira. So next fight we have here, we got Ray Tatsura versus Carlos Hernandez. I hope I'm not butchering Ray's name. I'm probably butchering that again. So apologies on that, guys. So when it comes to Ray, he fights out the southpaw stance. He's got a grappling style. He has very, very fast shoots, very fast entries, and he can look to change things too with his grappling. I'm not particularly that impressed with his ground control. Of course, he's a young fighter who's making improvements, but I say his entries and the way he's able to secure the takedowns is better than him controlling his opponents on the mat. And definitely does not feel comfortable on the feet. He can definitely be exploited in this area. He's definitely a fighter who wants to take the fight down to the ground and use his wrestling. But he's a young fighter. He could be making big improvements fight to fight, right? Carlos Hernandez, on the other hand, he's mainly got a boxing style of attack on the feet. He has showed a history of being taken down, but he is improving in this area. He can scramble back up, but I do feel like a strong offensive grappler can have a lot of success in this area. We talk about his level and his upside. I'd say he's probably towards the bottom end of the flyweight division, just because of how skilled the flyweights are, right? They're really, really skilled. So it's a very, very tricky division to do well in. How they match up, prediction standpoint, classic striker versus grappler matchup, right? Hernandez wants to keep the fight standing, and Tatsura wants to take the fight down to the ground. On paper, in my opinion, it seems like a really, really good matchup for Tatsura, because Hernandez has a history of struggling against grapplers. But I don't know. I just have a bad feeling about this one, to be honest, guys. I'm not 100% convinced with Tatsura yet. And Carlos is improving in being scrambly and working his way back up to the feet. I think the line's a tad bit wide, but I would probably have Tatsura as the slight bet. Well, I would have him as a betting favourite in this matchup. So with that all said, it's going to have to be a low confidence pick on Tatsura. From a betting perspective, I mean, for me personally, you guys might disagree, but betting Tatsura at odds of 1.25, which is around minus 400, I believe, in American odds, that's just completely out of the equation for me, because I just think he's a bit unproven. I think there's more value on the Carlos Hernandez side, but I need to think about it a bit more, because I'm wondering if my read is off here, and I don't want to just donate money to the books, right? So from a live betting perspective, keep an eye on whether Carlos is able to squirm himself out of these tricky grappling positions and look to keep the fight standing. So next fight we have here, we got Martin Buday versus the legend in Andrei Arlovski. Now Andrei, he's been around for a long time, right? He's an OG of the fight game. His chin's been cracked. Because of that, ever since a couple of years ago, he's really, really switched up his style. He likes to take as little risk as possible now, take the least amount of damage as possible, and just look to squeak out really, really close decisions and cash, big paychecks. He's on big money. He's earning a couple $100,000 per fight because he was former champ, been in UFC for a long time, right? He likes to stay on the outside and then come in, have his few eye-catching moments, and then just breeze back out and try and look good optically for the judges. Some risk factors with Arlovski though, he is 45. He's had a long career, and his chin's definitely been cracked. It's weird because I think at one point everyone's saying, look, his chin's completely done, but it's kind of come back a bit. But don't tell me he's cracked him, and he's definitely not as durable as he once was, right? And because of his age, the older guys, they tend to fatigue more as the fight goes on. But Buday, on the other hand, he likes to just come forwards, try and put a pace, put pressure on his opponents, and just land his boxing shots. He's nowhere near as effective when he's fighting on the back foot. With all due respect, he's a low-level heavyweight, in my opinion. Heavy matchup. perhaps a victory for both fighters. You know, Arlovski, we know what Arlovski is going to do, right? He's going to take as little risk as possible, fight on the outside, come in with a blitz and attacks, and then look to just win a decision, take as least damage as possible, cash his big checks, while Buday's just going to want to come forwards and put the pressure on. Prediction standpoint, you know what? I might regret this, and I might look really, really stupid, but I'm going to pick Arlovski here, even though he's ancient, which is definitely a concern. To be honest, I think he's the more skilled fighter in the spot. I think the UFC did him a favour by giving him one of the worst heavyweights on the roster in Martin Buday. So I'm going to pick him. Definitely has to be a low confidence pick. If I was putting a percentage on it, maybe 51 to 55% on Arlovski. I mean, Arlovski, he did all right against Eduardo Cortez Acosta, right? It was quite a close fight optically. He won round 3. But he is very much prone to being completely washed, right? Age 45. So this one's risky. I could easily look really, really stupid. But I'm going to pick him. From a betting perspective, I mean, for me, having Buday as the favourite makes sense if you're a bookmaker's standpoint, because the age concerns and Arlovski's washed narratives. And you want to protect yourself, right, if you're running a bookmaker. But for me, betting Buday at odds of 1.38 is just completely out of the equation. I could never, ever do it. I'm not really a big fan of him at all. And I can only get to betting Arlovski small if I do pull the trigger on this matchup. But it's a risky one. I know I keep saying it. I don't want this to be a cop-out, but it is a risky one to call. From a live betting perspective, hoping Arlovski starts well, and you can jump on him. But you've got to keep in mind that these older guys are very much prone to kind of fatiguing more quickly as the fight progresses. So yeah, you have to kind of be buyer beware on this matchup. So next fight we have here, we've got the karate hottie in Michelle Waterson versus Gillian Robertson. Now, when it comes to Gillian, she has a heavy grappling approach. She wants to fight. She wants to take the fight down to the ground by any means necessary, even if it means like pulling guard. She's heavy on top, and she has like quite smooth, slick transitions on the ground. I don't think she's like the strongest offensive wrestler to take the fights down to the ground. She normally just goes for the classic wrestling entries like the single legs. On the feet, she's very, very unconfident there. Very uncomfortable on the feet. And she's made zero efforts to make improvements in this area over the past couple of years. She's awful on the feet. Where it's like, with all due respect, you know, I was trying to not get too disrespectful, but she's not trustworthy at all on the feet. Karate Hottie, on the other hand, she's got a karate style of attack. She likes to try and fight on the outside, outpoint her opponents with kicks, side kicks, teeps, front kicks. But she often seems to struggle to find the range efficiently. She often misses with a lot of her kicks. She is 38, concern of mine. Looks like she's slowing down. She's been taking a lot of losses recently, but let's be real, like she's been facing some of the best girls in the division. She can skill takedowns, and she's pretty heavy on top. One thing that's always concerned me with the karate hottie is that the physicality. She's always been tiny for a strawweight. How these two match up, prediction standpoint, I don't think Waterson's really threatening enough on her feet. She is 100% the better striker, in my opinion. I think this fight could play out quite close. But I'm going to have to pick Robertson here, low confidence. I'm going to trust in the grappling here. Robertson's a girl that I've been betting quite a lot recently because they've been given a good matchups against weak grapplers. But I don't know if this is the spot here, but she's a lot younger, career trajectories. But yeah, it's definitely be a low confidence pick. From a live betting perspective, I'd possibly look at if Karate Hottie is able to maybe have success with the grappling, keep the fight standing. And yeah, I'd possibly look at live betting Waterson. So next fight we have here, we got Payton Talbott versus Yanis. I don't even want to pronounce that, guys. Sorry. Now, when it comes to Payton, one of the most talented fighters I've ever seen. His striking technique is just incredible. So crisp, perfect, but so incredibly composed inside the cage. His last performance against Simón, he just looked like he was just taking his dog out for a walk. When it comes to his flaws and weaknesses, like he could probably get grinded out by strong offensive grapplers. Of course, he's a young, talented fighter making improvements, but Aguirre was grinding on him, and in his Dana White Contender Series against Cortez was able to grind on him as well. Yanis is a striker as well. Not the most athletic and gifted fighter. He's got a kickboxing style. I don't really think he has the grinding abilities to grind on Payton. How these two match up, prediction standpoint, let's just keep it real here, guys. UFC called up Yanis, or Dana White and Hunter Campbell, and they're like, Yanis, we're going to give you this amazing opportunity to fight Payton. Even though it's a terrible, terrible stylistic matchup, if you beat him, you can become the next superstar. And this is a gimme matchup for Payton to promote him, help push him. He's just a much, much better striker, more talented, more skilled, more faster, sharper, cleaner. You just name it. From a betting perspective, that's why the line's 1.07, right? And there's not really much you can do with those odds. I don't think you can even really put that into a parlay. It's just probably best to leave this one alone from a bet perspective, because odds of 1.07, right? Anything can happen. Eye pokes, 10 ball kicks, and disqualification, right? It's just not worth the risk. But with all that said, it's going to be a high level confidence pick on Payton, but I'm not really saying anything special, right? I think it's pretty much obvious to everyone and the betting market. So next fight we have here, we got Gene Silva versus Charles Jourdain. Now, when we go to the Gene Silva side, solid, aggressive, powerful striker. Looks to really like throw with venom with all his strikes, really goes for it. Got boxing, elbows, knees, kicks. Looks to have bounce and footwork. Overall, in my opinion, from what we've seen with the limited footage that we have on him, because there's not really much film that we can go off, he looks solid, but obviously this is a big step up on competition, right? This is probably his first real challenge. Now, Jourdain, on the other hand, he's been in the UFC since young. He's faced some tough guys in there. He has a weak ground game, but I say he's like improving on it, but he can definitely be exploited in this area by a strong grappler, I feel. His style was mainly to be a striker, though. He likes to throw it in boxing combinations. He's got a nice low kick. And I think he does a good job of gliding in and out too. Overall, I'd say he's like a solid mid-level featherweight, in my opinion. How these two match up? I think these two are going to clash. I think it's going to be a competitive fight. I think it's mainly going to be a striking fight. I mean, Silva looks solid, in my opinion. But I'm going to have a slight lean towards Jourdain. I'm going to pick him between 55 to 60%. Because it's a big step up in competition for Silva, in my opinion. From a betting perspective, I think I respect for early bets on Silva. So a lot of guys, I imagine, got plus 180, 170, 160, that sort of range. I respect those bets because there's that upside and potential there. Is likely going to be a competitive striking fight. But at this current moment, at the current line, I agree with Jourdain being the slight betting favourite. From my perspective, at the moment, what I'm thinking, I'm probably going to leave this one alone because I just do see it as a competitive striking fight. From a live betting perspective, I think you're going to have to score this one round by round. But as the fight progresses, I do feel like Jourdain is a guy who gets stronger and gets more aggressive and gets better as the fight progresses. So overall, the low confidence pick on Charles Jourdain to win a competitive striking fight, but I do respect the upside and the potential that Gene Silva may have. So next fight we have here, we got Cub Swanson versus Andrei Fili. Now, Fili, he's got a wealth of fighting experience, mainly got a kickboxing style, your switch stances. He'll throw both hands and kicks, and just overall solid technique. Good grappler too, but his striking is mainly definitely his preferred method of style. Overall, I say he's like a good mid-level featherweight. When it comes to like flaws though, like he has a history of getting hurt by big power punchers. Even Nathaniel Wood was able to hurt him. Now, Cub, on the other hand, Cub's age concerns me. He's 40 years old. He's got a hands down low boxing style, uses reflex and head movement for his form of defense, and he's heavy on his lead foot. He looked good against Hakeem in round 1, but then it looked like he was tiring in round 2 until he managed to find a second wind. And, with his age, hands down low, having to rely on reflexes, that's not really something I love to see. Now, how these two match up, I struggle to pick 40-year-olds, and I'm certainly not in the business of betting 40-year-olds inside the UFC. I think there's a good chance that Cub comes in looking washed, in my opinion, or just kind of have a strong round 1 and then start to fatigue. We see a lot of these older guys, these older fighters, they tend to be able to fatigue more quickly. How these two match up, if we're just going off like past performances, past tape, it should be a competitive striking fight if we get, Cub from film. But saying all that, it's going to be a low to medium level confidence pick on Andrei Fili. From a betting perspective, as mentioned, I'm not in the business of betting 40-year-olds. Those are just minus EV bets, in my opinion. It's hard enough trying to crack these bet markets without handicapping myself and already having to have an uphill battle and an uphill climb by betting on a 40-year-old. So if I was going to target this fight from a betting perspective, I could only look towards the Andrei Fili side. From a live betting perspective, we could see Cub start strong in round 1, then fatigue as the fight progresses, or we can see another situation or another strategy where Cub looks completely washed straight away and it looks kind of done. So overall, without all that said, it's going to be a low to medium level confidence pick on Andrei Fili to win this fight, probably by decision. But I don't think a finish is out of the equation. So next fight we have here, we got Joe Pyfer versus Marc-André Barriault. I'm just going to call him MAB for shortness. So Pyfer, he's a powerhouse striker. He's massive for middleweight. That's one of the first things that stands out to me. He's a fast striker, good overall skill, and he looks to land like heavy shots on his opponents instead of a volume style of attack. He does, he had a 5-round fight. He did seem to fatigue in that fight against Jack Hermanson, but he fought hard for 3 rounds. But it makes sense with how much, he puts everything into his shots that he is going to tire down a bit. When it comes to his grappling, he has very nice, fast wrestling shots, but perhaps he's not the best at controlling his opponents on the ground. MAB, on the other hand, he fought a lot more tactical against Chris Curtis. He fought on the outside, tried to avoid the heavy shots of Curtis. But normally his style is to be a heavy pressure fighter. He likes to be aggressive. He looks to come forwards, look to grind, push a pace on his opponents, and get him into the clinch, where he's quite effective in the clinch. I think he's one of the more effective clinch fighters in the middleweight division. He loves to land dirty boxer shots, uppercuts in the clinch, land these shots in the clinch, and really push up and grind on his opponents and push a pace. He is very, very hittable though, which I never really love to see. He's a bit of a slow starter too, which may be a problem in this matchup, and he's usually a guy who gets stronger as the fight progresses. Overall, like with his ceiling, I'd say he's like a mid-level middleweight, if not just below the mid-level of the middleweight divisions. How they match up, prediction standpoint, I think Pyfer is probably going to be much more physically imposing. I think he's going to land the harder, more bigger shots, and I think he's a much stronger starter than MAB, and I think he can land and catch MAB while MAB is trying to force a fight. So overall, it's going to be a low to medium level confidence pick on Joe Pyfer. But I'm kind of tempted to make it, you know what? I'm kind of tempted to make it a medium level confidence pick. From a betting perspective, I mean, I would have Pyfer as the favorite, but at a current line, 1.38, you're not getting any discounts to be able to back him, even after a loss. So it's a steep price to pay, but he is more likely and he should win this fight. I think Dana White, they really, really like Pyfer and they've been giving him favourable matchups. And I think this is one of the more favourable matchups that you can get inside the middleweight division. From a live betting perspective, maybe if Pyfer has success early, then the line's going to be cooked, right? But maybe we can see a scenario where the pace, the pressure gets to Pyfer. So overall, I'm going to say low to medium level confidence pick on Joe Pyfer to win this fight. Probably, I think he could get a knockout, but I think a decision is probably more likely, just because maybe he could take some hard shots. So next fight we have here, we got the fan favorite, Machado Garry, most popular fight in the UFC. Personally, at the moment, currently, my favorite fighter. Great personality, great guy, just all round, just a good human being. But jokes aside, great family too. Jokes aside, when we go to his style, Garry, very talented fighter, very good striking with both his hands, kicks, got a nice knee as well, sharp, clean, solid technique, and has very, very good lateral footwork and movement. Honestly, like, I know there's a lot of hate on this guy. I think he has high upside. I think his potential is between top 5 to top 10 of that division. MVP, on the other hand, is another solid fighter. He's mainly got a striking style, has a unique karate stance, wide stance, and he looks to explode and blitz and find openings for his blitz attacks. And he does an excellent job of closing the distance for his blitzing attacks and then bouncing back out. You having his karate stance, very good lateral movement, similar to Garry. Overall, I'm impressed. Very fast, very good technique, and high. Overall, I think he's a high-level fighter. When it comes to his weaknesses, though, MVP has a really weak ground game, in my opinion. If you are able to take MVP down, he looks like very bad off his back. You can just often chill and guard. He kind of looks clueless, but this is a trend that I've noticed with a lot of the British fighters. They do look weak off their back. Now, how these two match up, I think this is an extremely well-matched fight. I think this is predominantly going to be a striking fight. And I think it's likely going to play out close. If anyone does initiate the grappling, I think it's going to be, Garry for sure. How these two match up, prediction, it's going to be a striking fight. You know, both guys are going to keep it on a standing. Garry's like technical striking and volume might give him an edge in a decision, but I think Page probably has more power, knockout potential, and a more unpredictable style, which does make him a very, very dangerous opponent. So if I was going to cap this, I'll have Garry 55% and MVP 45%. So from a betting perspective, I'm probably going to leave this one alone because, to be honest, this fight's given me a bit of a headache. I think both guys are highly skilled, and I think you can make a strong argument for either fighter to win. From a live betting perspective, I think this is just one of those fights you have to score round by round, see who you're favouring, see who the judges are going to favour. But yeah, overall, great fight. Conclusion, low-level confidence pick on Garry, 55%. I'll cap him that. So next fight we have here, we got Mauro Bueno Silva versus Macy Chiasson. Now we go to the Bueno Silva side. She's a former title challenger. She's mainly a striker. She has a very aggressive style of fighting. She has good kicks, good punches. She's pretty athletic and powerful on the feet. And she has a nasty low calf kick. She also is effective in the clinch. She's able to land nasty elbows, knees in there, and even look to fish for submissions in these clinch positions. Overall, I think she's solid. Her I'm going to discuss a bit more about her grappling. Her BJJ and grappling game has been improving over the years. I say her offensive BJJ and her offensive grappling game is far more potent and dangerous than her defensive side. Even though she's been shoring up her defensive aspect of the grappling game, she can definitely get exploited by a strong wrestler. Chiasson, on the other hand, she's a huge fighter for the division, massive 135er. She's basically a featherweight fighting at 135. When it comes to her striking style, she likes to fight on the outside, use her length, use her size, fight on the edges and on the outskirts, switch stances, and just kind of keep her opponents at range, keep her at bay, use her long punches like the jabs, crosses, and then look to implement a grappling game. But saying that, like, I liked how in a fight against Irina Aldana, her coaches was like, look, we need to change things up. And she was a lot more aggressive and came forwards with her striking against Aldana. And she had some success there, but mainly she likes to fight in the outskirts. Now, when it comes to her grappling, like, she's a good, capable grappler, in my opinion. She's an effective offensive grappler. I say she relies more on her large frame and her physicality than be like a super slick, skilled BJJ grappler and a skilled wrestler, because she's so big, she's so physically imposing. She can have a lot of success. Of course, physicality is massively important it tends to be more important in the women's divisions. She can control her opponents on the ground with her physicality and size, as previously mentioned, and her ground and pound is devastating. Overall, she's solid. I'd say she's like probably a mid-level bantamweight. Path to victory, how do you see match up? I believe Chiasson's best path to victory here is probably to initiate a grappling and try to take advantage of Bueno Silva's bottom game, where she has historically looked weak, while I believe Silva's probably going to want to keep this fight standing and land the harder, more damaging shots and keep the fight standing. Now, prediction standpoint, how they match up. This is going to be, in my opinion, I think it's going to be a competitive fight. I'm going to pick Bueno Silva here, low confidence, because I just think she is the more threatening fighter, especially on the feet. I think she can land the harder, more damaging shots, which the judges love, right? And they seem to hate grapplers nowadays. So overall, it's going to be a low confidence pick on Bueno Silva. From a betting perspective, I mean, it's hard to get super duper passionate about betting Bueno Silva at odds of 1.60, right? Because it's likely going to be a competitive fight where both fighters probably have their moments. But I'm going to monitor the line, see if more Chiasson money comes in. But I think from my perspective at the moment, I'd rather be on, if I was going to target this fight from a betting perspective, I'd rather be on the Bueno Silva side, just because I do think she's going to get the win more likely. From a live betting perspective, pretty binary fight in my opinion. But maybe if Chiasson's having a lot of success striking, then you could possibly look to live better. So, next fight we have here, we've got Anthony Smith versus Roman Dolidze. Now, when we go to Roman Dolidze's side, he's a little bit slow in my opinion, not the most athletically gifted fighter, or the most technically gifted fighter, but he's a brute. He's going to come forwards aggressively. He's going to throw heavy, and he knows his strengths, right? He knows his style. He's going to keep coming forwards, put pace, pressure, try to land hard shots. And, he's got a bit of underrated power, in my opinion. Marvin Vettori's got an iron chin, and Vettori was getting buzzed with the hard shots that Dolidze was landing. When it comes to his grappling, like, he's got a nasty submission game from bottom, very dangerous off his back. Like, he can fish for submissions and land like some devastating ground and pound from bottom. Like, the way he finished Jack Hermansson, that was scary stuff, because Jack Hermansson's a BJJ black belt, right? And he's known for being quite a high level grappler. But he doesn't really have like the strong offensive wrestling skill set to take the fight down to the ground, though. Anthony Smith, he's more of a jack of all trades type of fighter. Imagine I do think he's on a decline. I think the betting market's probably overreacted because he did get a submission win over Petrino. Of course, the line was probably too wide there, but I think Smith's going to want to keep this fight on the outskirts, try and fight clean, try and fight technical, and probably counter-strike Delise as he comes in. I thought he retired though, so it's a bit weird that he's coming back. So from a prediction standpoint, with all that being said, it's going to be a low to medium level confidence pick on Delise to win this fight. Now, from a live end perspective, maybe if Smith's able to keep Delise at bay, keep him at range, outpoint him, outkick him, then you might want to look to target Smith. From a betting perspective, as mentioned, it's probably some recency bias, right? Because if Smith lost that fight, he would be like minus 400 against Delise, but maybe I'd much rather be on the Delise side from a betting perspective than Anthony Smith, in my opinion. Of course, this fight is at light heavyweight instead of middleweight, but tail of the tape, how they match up physicality-wise is very much similar. So yeah, overall, low to medium level confidence pick on Roman Delise to win this fight. So next fight we have here, we got one of the most intriguing matchups on the card. I'm really, really looking forward to this fight. We got Brian Ortega versus Diego Lopez. Now, Brian Ortega, former title challenger. He's fought the high level of guys inside the UFC. On the feet, he's a bit of a punching bag. Like, he's very, very hittable. He's got heart. He's got toughness. He's got durability. He'll never quit in there. He's got a boxing style of attack on the feet. He's not a bad offensive boxer. He's going to come forwards, put the pressure on his opponents, and look to land volume. Obviously, Ortega is known for his world-class submission game. One of the best in the division. And dealing with Ortega in these grappling positions is like playing with lava. But he doesn't really have like a strong offensive wrestling game to take the fights down to the mat to complement his nasty submission game. And he's also like, another thing I want to mention is that Ortega is a huge featherweight. He said he's going to move up to lightweight, which makes sense. Truthfully, I think he's a lightweight fighter at featherweight. Now, Lopez, on the other hand, his boxing looks improved over the years. He looks sharp, clean, powerful, and he'll swing for it. I know he knocked out Yusuf, but I know Yusuf has a bad chin, and the same goes for Pat Sabatini as well, which I believe adds to his overall mystique, aura, and hype. Lopez, he's a BJJ black belt as well. He has a tricky submission game too. He was almost able to catch Evloev in multiple submission attempts from bottom, but I think I do like Evloev. I think he's a very, very solid fighter, but he has a history of almost, he's prone to being caught in tricky submissions. Now, especially from bottom. Now, personally, I'm not 100% convinced with Lopez yet. If he comes through, beats Ortega, then I'll be 100% sold on him. I think he's a talent fighter, don't get me wrong. I believe he has potential, and he has overall a good skill set. But in his fight against Evloev, he was starting to fatigue, right? And then some of his previous fights, like the one that comes to my mind, is back in 2021 where he fought Nate Richardson. He was starting to fatigue. And then obviously Johnson Brito, he's a beast. The fight was back in 2021, but he got kind of out physical in round 1, round 2, and he just kind of quit in there and took the easy way out because he knew he was going to lose that fight, right? So how these two match up, I think this is going to be a violent fight. I really do. I think Ortega's going to come forwards, put the pressure on. And if a KO does occur, I think it's going to happen early while Lopez is the most dangerous. Otherwise, I think Ortega will end up eating the shots and take over as the fight progresses. Now, I think when it comes to grappling exchanges, I can't get a super, super duper strong read, but I think Ortega's the better overall BJJ practitioner and grappler. He's probably a little bit more physical in there, but yeah. So with all that said, I'm going to go against the betting market here. I'm going to go against the picks, predictions. I'm going to go against everyone here. And I'm going to pick Ortega here, low confidence. I would probably, if from a betting perspective, I'll probably line this probably closer to a pick'em. I'm going to have a slight lean towards Ortega. I'll say he's going to be able to eat the shots from Lopez, keep coming forwards, and be able to dog this one out. From the betting perspective again, I see the market has respect for Lopez's hype and potential. And I can't sit there and say I strongly disagree. He's making improvements to his game. He has a good, well-rounded skill set. He could definitely clip Ortega with his power, but as mentioned, I think Ortega's going to be able to dog this one out. So from a betting perspective, if I do end up pulling the trigger on this fight, it would only be on Brian Ortega, and it will definitely be a small, maybe a medium type of wager. Now, from a live betting perspective, I think I laid it out like Lopez early, Ortega late. So yeah, overall, low level confidence pick on Brian Ortega to win this fight. So we go to the main event of the evening. If you guys are enjoying the content, please leave me a comment, sub, all that cliche YouTube stuff, because it does motivate me to keep producing this content, and it lets me know that you guys are enjoying the videos. And yeah, thank you very much for tuning in. I really do appreciate it, and hope you guys are getting value. Let me know who you guys are picking. Do you disagree with me on certain fights? And yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. So main event, obviously this is a rematch, right? It's a fantastic fight. When we go to AP, or Alex Pereira side, one of the best kickboxers in the world, just excellent striking technique in both his hands and kicks. Obviously, he's got the famous left hook that he loves to set up, and his calf kicks are devastating. He's a very crafty fighter who likes to set up traps. But yeah, overall, stating the obvious here, but world-class kickboxer. I'm super duper impressed. Just dangerous in all aspects of the kicking, knees, punches, you name it. When it comes to his grappling, like, his ground game is definitely improving, and I'm being impressed with how much he's been able to improve on this area. But he is a bad defensive grappler. He looks bad off his back, like really weak off his back. He's definitely not 100% competent in this area. He can definitely get taken down by strong grapplers, but luckily he's mainly been matched up with strikers, right? Now, because Jiri Prochazka, he's the former champ. He's a lunatic. His fighting style is just so unorthodox. He's going to come forwards, hands down low, be aggressive, put a pace, put a pressure that his opponents cannot keep up with. And his strikes just come from unorthodox angles, has power, just very solid striking fundamentals and skill. And with his style, he just managed to find a way to make it work. Has a great chin, toughness, durability, but his hands down low style is a concern, and he is there to be hit from a defensive aspect of the striking game. Now, in the first fight, we have to talk about the first fight, right? In his first fight, AP was having success early, winning the striking exchanges. The calf kicks will look like they'll get into Jiri, and of course, Jiri did struggle with the calf kicks against Alexander Rakic. Then Jiri was able to pressure him and take him down where AP looked weak off his back. In round 2, round 3, it looked like the pressure might have been getting to AP. But a part of me thinks Alex Pereira was just looking to set up that left hook. Now, path to victories for both fighters, Jiri needs to put an uncomfortable pace and pressure on AP and look to mix up his grappling. AP, on the other hand, he needs to keep the fight technical, clean, assert his dominance, not let Jiri pressure him and keep coming forwards, and make Jiri respect him inside the cage. How they match up? From a prediction standpoint, I think it's mainly going to be a striking fight. Jiri's going to want to come forwards, make it an uncomfortable fight, put the pressure, look to make things suck with his grappling. While AP is going to want to fight clean and technical and keep Jiri's pace and pressure away from him. I don't see Jiri winning a clean, technical kickboxing fight where he's fighting on the outside against him. So I really think he needs to go for it again. I'm going to pick Alex Pereira again because I just think he is the more cleaner, technical striker. And he did win the first fight. So overall, it's going to be a low to medium level confidence pick on AP, aka Alex Pereira. Now, from a betting perspective, Jiri's a guy who's been disrespected by the market, so you get quite close lines for him. Same with Alex Pereira. I think he's another guy who's been underrated by the betting market as a whole. If you just look at his past prices, his fights are always quite evenly lined. Now, it's AP at the moment, or Alex Pereira. He's a tempting bet for me because he won the first fight by knockout. even though I do think Jiri is an elite level fighter, and betting these fights just historically are just more riskier, right? Because they're just two world-class fighters clashing at each other. And I do respect Jiri's game. He could definitely put pace, pressure. He's got power. So it's one I'm going to have to think about. And if I do pull the trigger, it's going to be a low to medium type of wager on Alex Pereira. I respect Jiri too much. And this fight's too high level for me to go huge on Alex Pereira. So from a live betting perspective, this fight just has chaos written all over it, don't it? So I think this one's probably going to be tricky to live bet.